Hello everyone and welcome to Carving Your Career in Events, hosted by Edinburgh Napier Event Society. My name is Hughes, I'm the founder of the society and I was the president up until earlier this year. I'll be hosting the event. We've got some fantastic speakers lined up. We've got Samantha Salisbury of Jonsam Events, Josef Jammerbund of the Event Academy, Steve Squires from Connektd, Matthew Tosh, presenter, pyrotechnician and freelance events professional who will be doing talks and joining us for a panel discussion and a Q&A in the first session. Following that, we'll have another session with another panel hosted by Event First Steps founders Priya and Narain and Kobrak, with guests David Jarman and Caroline Jackson. I'm going to hand over now to our first speaker, Samantha Salisbury, who's hosting her session, Raising Your Profile. You'll see we've got a chat section if you've joined us on Zoom, and a Q&A. Feel free to fire any questions for any individual speakers or for a full panel into the Q&A section, and we'll get to them later on. So I'll hand over now to our first speaker, Samantha.
Hello everybody, lovely to see you all virtually. I'm just going to share my screen. Great. Hope you're all well this Wednesday. So I'm going to start talking really about 5 steps to raise your visibility in the events industry right now. So these are practical tips and tricks that you can do right now to get yourself seen, get yourself out there, and raise your profile really in the events industry. If you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat. As I am doing a screen share, I can't see the chat at the same time as presenting, but I can answer them later after my presentation or in the Q&A with the rest of the panel. Okay, great. So just to start off a little bit about me, it's lovely to see some familiar faces in the speakers and the attendees. So a little bit about me. I started out 20 years ago working in the events industry at the old Wembley Stadium. I've worked in all different areas of event management, lots of different sectors. I've worked in commercial conferences on an agency side. I've worked overseas in Australia. I've worked for a wedding venue, I've worked as a wedding planner, so a real mix of different roles and sectors. Back in 2006, I set up Jonsam Events. Now I specialise really in academic conferences at the University of Cambridge and also doing corporate events in and around Cambridge and the Midlands. As the same as everyone else, my events kind of work has completely stopped for the moment. Hopefully it'll be back again next year, and I'm focusing really on running my Facebook group, Get Ahead in Events, and also I've got a paid membership out there at the moment and focusing on that. So let's get started. Great, so these are the points I'm going to be talking about. So really the 5 steps. First one is creating a standout CV when you're looking for that role, either a permanent role, a freelance role, or a temporary work. Step 2 is, using social media now to your advantage and making the most of this time. Step 3, letting your contacts know you're looking for your new role. Step 4, networking effectively during a lockdown, during a pandemic, how to do that. And then step 5, kind of reassessing, retraining and upskilling. And I'll be going into detail about all of those areas. Hope that's okay. If you've got any questions, just pop them in the chat. That'll be lovely. Great. I can't see anyone or see anything, but I hope this is all okay. You can hear me? Right, so starting off, first of all, so really whether you're looking for a permanent role, a temporary role, or looking for freelance work right now, you need to have a CV that stands out. I've seen quite a few CVs of event professionals recently, and they really do vary in colour, in format, and it is absolutely fine to be as creative as you like, but just make sure that it fits the kind of role you're going for. So if you're going for, something in the more creative side of the events industry, festivals, weddings, that kind of thing, then by all means, put colour in it. You can create amazing CVs and things on Canva right now. If you're going more for corporate roles, then make sure it fits. Don't make it too colourful. Make sure if you've got a photo that it's appropriate, it's professional enough. So spend some time now, working on your CV, update it, remove roles that are not relevant. Make sure, you know, depending on your age, you don't always need to include all your school qualifications. If you are a bit older, a bit like me, you don't need to put in your GCSEs. If you are younger, make sure you have got your A-levels. Make sure you have got your degree class that you were awarded. I've seen quite a lot of CVs recently where there have been degree classes, you know, degrees on there, but people haven't put that they've got a 2-1. That's something to celebrate. So make sure you put that in there. Also have a, you know, make sure you've got a really good eye-catching personal profile. And then finally get someone to proofread it. It could be a parent, it could be your partner, it could be another colleague, anyone really, because that, you know, definitely is important to make sure that it's proofread, there's no spelling mistakes, that there's nothing else, you know, wrong with it, that it's nicely laid out, nicely formatted. Try and keep it as brief and concise as possible. Spend some time now. If you have been going for roles and you have been sending your CV out and you're not getting a great response, obviously there is a huge number of event professionals looking for work at the moment. And maybe it's time to review your CV and ask for some feedback from different event professionals, maybe some colleagues, maybe previous employers that you've worked with or contacts you've got. Everyone is very open to helping at the moment. So if you have, you know, sent your CV out, say, you know, to 30, 40, 50 jobs and you haven't had any response at all, maybe now is to reassess how it's working and ask for people for feedback. I think everyone is very happy to give comments and things like that at the moment and to help as much as possible. Great, so that's that step. I can see a chat comment, but I can't quite figure out how to read that, so I'll leave that for the time being and I'll come back to that. Next thing, social media, so important at the moment. I've been going through this with, we had a coffee chat yesterday and we were actually talking about one of the members of the Facebook group, talking all about whether they should be on Instagram in a professional format. I strongly believe now is the time to use social media as much as possible. Can be very overwhelming, so maybe pick 2 platforms that you'd like to focus on. LinkedIn is a great one. Instagram is very, you know, is very popular at the moment, but pick 2 platforms that you just want to focus on. Don't try and be on every single platform. It will be too difficult. The next thing is, if you've set up profiles, you know, have a think, are they professional enough? One of the event profs I was talking to yesterday, her Instagram is full of puppy photos and food shots. Great, but not appropriate necessarily if you're going for, you know, a very events corporate role. You know, maybe think about whether you need to set up a separate profile on Instagram for your personal life and one for your professional life. Your personal profile, you could lock it down and make it secure. That's absolutely fine. And then have an open one that's, you know, showcasing you and your work. Just taking it on time. And then also, you know, brainstorm some ideas of what you're going to do to raise your visibility. This is where you need to really think about which sector of the events industry you want to work in. If it's something specific, like if you really want to go into festivals, really want to go into weddings, really want to do the production side, really think about what area you want to go into and then brainstorm ideas that are appropriate, that are going to raise your visibility. For example, you're going to maybe think about setting up a blog. You can do that very easily on a WordPress site. There's no charge for that. Maybe write an e-zine. Another member of my membership, they are setting up an e-zine all about weddings, and they're going to showcase weddings every month. Again, you can create a beautiful e-zine on Canva. Canva is a free creative system, or, you know, graphic system that you can use. You can get the free version. You can create amazing things on that. Are you confident doing Instagram lives? Maybe you're going to do an interview series. So for example, I spoke to another member on Monday. They're really into festivals. They're going to start doing a series of Instagram lives where they're going to be interviewing people that are recent event professionals that are actually organising festivals at the moment. So they've done some research, found some festivals that are going ahead, found the people who are running them, the organisers. They're going to do an Instagram series interviewing them. They're going to interview some people who've had to cancel the festivals and the reason, and talk about the reasons why. And again, that'll show them as you know, someone who knows all about festivals, and they're going to that'll raise their profile. Other bits and pieces. How about doing some LinkedIn articles related to the area you're interested in, the sector? Perhaps you've seen something in the press, on the internet, anything like that that you're interested in, then talk about that, write an article, and then have a real think about what else you can do to stand out in the events industry right now. There are a lot of event professionals out there all looking for permanent roles, temporary roles, freelance roles. So you need to make something, you know, you need to do something that makes you stand out. The students that I know and the people in the starting of their events careers, the ones that have really got work at this time are the ones that are standing out and making that time. Right, I'm going to keep going because I know I've got time. Right, next step, make sure you have told people that you're looking for a new role. Again, I've been looking at people's LinkedIn profiles, and you know, some people, you can't tell anywhere they're actually looking for work. It looks like they're employed at the moment in their last role. Make it clear that you're looking for work on LinkedIn. Reach out to your contacts and let them know that you're looking for work. Contact previous, you know, colleagues, employers, see what they're up to, and see if they've got any roles. Drop them an email, see how they're getting on. Reach out to any previous clients you've had. You never know where work is going to come from. You know, it could come to you from lots of different sources. Right, I'll keep going because I am conscious of the time. So I know you've got lots of speakers coming on today. The next thing is, you know, network effectively during this lockdown, during a pandemic. So first of all, go and put together a list of companies that you would like to work for or with. If it's festival specific, go and write a list of festivals you'd be interested in working for next year. If it's corporate, go and write a list out. You know, do some research, find the senior people of these companies on social media, engage with them, get yourselves known, go to online events that they're organising, go to events like this, network with the speakers, with the other attendees. There's so many events out there, you know, be picky about what you're going to attend. Which ones you're going to go to, because there's so many different ones to go to, and then, you know, and then go and network. Recently there was some using platforms such as Remo, where you can really connect with people, which is brilliant. So, you know, find platforms that you like and you know that there is an opportunity to network. Also, a lot of the business networking events are still going on in a virtual space. So please, you know, go and attend those and see how you're getting on. Right, and then my final step is really to think about reassessing and retraining and upskilling. So this is probably the only point as an event professional where you're going to have time to do things, where you're going to have time to, you know, take time out and think about what you're doing. So really reassess about what you want to do long term. You know, what do you like about working in events? What do you dislike? Are there any sectors or roles you'd be interested in? You know, are you currently working in production and you would really like to go into more account management role? Are you working, were you working previously for a small boutique events agency? Would you like to go and work on larger events for a larger commercial conference company? You know, what kind of work do you like doing? What would you like to do in the future? Write it down so you've got it written down and you've really thought about it. Then have a think about what you can retrain to do. What else can you learn to do? So event professionals know at the moment, you know, they're doing C-event training. There's a special offer on with them. Some are learning all about virtual events. Some are doing health and safety training. Some are learning how to do risk assessments. If you're not sure how to do an event budget, go and learn about that. At the moment, there's lots and lots of courses out there, paid and unpaid. You know, pick carefully what you're doing, what courses you're doing. Ask other event professionals for recommendations, but go and, you know, upskill. Think clearly, where is there a gap in my knowledge, in my skills? What courses can you do to fill that gap? and then talk about this on what you're doing on social media. You know, talk about what you learn in a course on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Give examples of your learnings. Again, yesterday I was talking to some of the members, and we were saying, you know, Instagram and social media is great when you talk about what you've actually learned and share that information with others. You don't necessarily want to just be talking all about yourself, but you could share what you've learned with other event professionals. That would be really helpful. I love seeing what other people are doing and what they're up to. And I think that's the case with lots of event professionals at this time. Great, let's go. All right, okay, I'm on the questions. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I hope that was okay, Cameron. I'm just going to have a gulp of water. Great, okay, has anyone got any questions? And I'll pop that up if anyone wants to get in touch. Those are my details. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Great. Right, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Hope I stuck to time. I was trying to go as quick as I could.
That's fantastic. It's great to hear from you. Lots of interesting stuff there, lots to take away, and I look forward to hearing more from Samantha in our panel later on. Like I said, if you've got any questions, please do use the Q&A section and we'll get to them later on, whether that's for an individual speaker or for our panel as a whole. Also, please check out Samantha's Facebook group, Get Ahead in Events. Join that, there's lots going on there. And also have a look into the Event Careers Club that she's recently set up, because that's something that's very interesting for those looking to carve a career in events. Our next speaker is from the Event Academy. His name is Josef Jammerbund. He's a former head of events at the British Fashion Council and has run the British London Fashion Week for a number of years. And he'll be talking now about learning and self-development. So I'll hand over now to Josef.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Cameron. And also thank you, Samantha, for sharing your really valuable insights and super interesting points. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Yes, so hopefully everybody can see my screen now. If you can't see it, please just pop something in the chat and I can try again. But in terms of myself and what I'm going to talk to you about today is really about learning and self-development, and also, you know, hopefully try and give you some key points in terms of, you know, how you can apply that to your own learning and self-development journey. So, you know, starting with myself, so I went to hotel school or hospitality school originally way back in the 90s, and really that set me up for, I guess, you know, not just learning about, you know, hotel operations, but also how to deal with people and, you know, dealing with people at all levels. And certainly when I look at CVs now, you know, whenever people have experience in working in hospitality or working in retail, I always feel like they have, you know, some really, you know, great knowledge, you know, in terms of how to just speak to people, you know, how to deal with people, which you can apply to, you know, speaking to your clients, speaking to your peers, you know, speaking to your production teams, etc. From then, I then moved on to fashion show and event production. I actually, in a way, kind of fell into events. So with my background in hospitality, I knew I wanted to do something different, and I got an internship with a really amazing high-end fashion events production agency called Inca, which was through a friend of a friend, and they needed some interns at the time, and I was already, I guess, a little mature for an intern. You know, I was 27, but I thought, you know, I really want to get into events, and if I do this now, then I know, and I can feel this, I can set myself up for, you know, a really great, you know, hopefully a really great career. And so I did it, and it was amazing to do, you know, 3 months with Inca working on fashion shows. I never had anything to do with fashion events. And I fell in love with the work, with the people, with, you know, the industry. And I've been in fashion and events ever since, so for the last 15 years or so. You know, following that, you know, I then went into, you know, working for a large PR agency, a global PR agency called Edinburgh, and then I joined the British Fashion Council, which was always my dream job, you know, working on London Fashion Week, you know, organizing, you know, all of London Fashion Week, you know, all the big events, working on the Fashion Awards, which is a huge, it's a sort of a glitzy red carpet event, and we moved from the Coliseum in Covent Garden to the Royal Albert Hall, which was also my last event. And, you know, I know I said it was my dream job, but then I quit my dream job because I felt like there's something else I need to try. And I went freelance, and, you know, I know that, you know, a couple of other people will talk about, you know, what to do and how to work in freelance, but I didn't really know anything. And I kind of just went into this sort of almost blind thinking, you know, I'll go freelance, it's going to be great. And it was great, and it has been great, and it still is great, but also there is so much to learn, you know, when you work freelance, just in terms of, you know, putting yourself out there, networking, you know, and also just building up your own profile. But in the last few years, I've started lecturing, teaching, mentoring, which again, it's like most things in my career have all been quite organic processes. And I really enjoy that now. And it's actually something that I'm starting to build up more and more is my teaching practice, you know, and I really enjoy, you know, working with students and, you know, working closely with them and helping them to, you know, achieve their goals in their career. What I also did over the course of the last 5 years or so is finding out about mindfulness and daily meditation, which has kind of helped me to balance some of the more stressful times that we all go through when we work in events. And, you know, quite often the focus is all on work, and, you know, the focus is all on, you know, just getting from one project to the next, getting from one big job to the next, and actually not really sort of thinking about, you know, your own well-being, mental health, and finding balance. And actually that's what's really helped me. You know, I've been able to apply some of those learnings in everyday working life in terms of just, you know, when things get really tough and really stressful, is maybe just to take a breather and maybe go outside, walk around the block, and come back in and, you know, rejoin the madness. And also, I guess what I've learned is, you know, not to be afraid to ask for advice at any given moment, whether that's in a meeting, just to kind of put my hand up and say, actually, you know, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't know what this is, or if, you know, it's not appropriate to say it in a meeting, is maybe say afterwards, someone just, you know, pull them aside and say, listen, can I just ask you a couple of questions, because I'm not entirely sure, you know, what was discussed in that meeting, or, you know, how I can add value to this. In terms of, you know, learning and skills, you know, I thought I'd put together a few tips for us to, you know, hopefully go through today, and hopefully you'll find those beneficial. Goal setting, I think, is hugely important, is, you know, find out where you want to be, where you want to go. And, you know, certainly there's a lot of downtime for most of us right now. And, you know, as much fun as it is, or has been, to, you know, watch Netflix all day and, you know, bake the banana bread, is actually also good to just have a think about, you know, where do I want to be? Visualize yourself in that new environment. You know, what kind of events do I enjoy? What kind of which parts of events do I not enjoy? You know, what do I want to do? You know, just building on from what Samantha said, is it's good to get your CV and your LinkedIn totally up to scratch. You know, make sure that is presentable. And also, if someone says, "Oh, can you send me your CV?" Be ready, rather than saying, "Yes, I'll send it to you," and then, you know, a week later you're still kind of working on the formatting. It's just like, be ready, have it ready. You know, have it ready to send, you know, at a moment's notice, which I think is really important. You know, look at it. Look at your own development almost like a project, like an event, and plan it accordingly. You know, we're all really good at planning things because that's what we do as event professionals, but then also think about planning your own, you know, career or your learning journey, etc. Also try and stretch yourself, you know, within reason. You know, what goals can you achieve easily, you know, but also what goals will really stretch you, you know, that may take, you know, like maybe a year or two in terms of, you know, education, doing a course, doing maybe another degree, etc. You know, take courses. You know, at the Event Academy, we have a number of courses available, all of which are online right now. And, you know, if you already have a degree qualification, we have a really great and highly regarded postgraduate course, which I also teach on. Practice new things. So, you know, whether that's learning, you know, something to do with events, you know, to upskill, but also, you know, maybe you're interested in learning how to play tennis, or, you know, learn another skill. I think it's just, you know, really, really helpful. I read every day, and, you know, certainly during lockdown, I've sort of set myself a target of reading 50 pages every day. Not that I achieve that every day, but at least there was a target, and it certainly helps me just to kind of keeps my brain ticking over. As and when you can volunteer. I know opportunities aren't really out there right now, but you know, just see what kind of events and, you know, what kind of projects you might want to volunteer with. Expand your horizons, you know, switch up the things you do every day. You know, if you normally do your exercise in the morning, do it in the afternoon. You know, if you do your reading in the afternoon, do it in the morning. You know, just try and, you know, break up the routine a little bit so you don't get stuck in, you know, doing the same thing every day. A couple more tips for you in terms of your self-development. You know, always ask questions, you know, whether that's asking yourself questions or asking, you know, other people questions. Speak to people at all levels. I'm echoing Samantha's point in terms of now you know, people are really willing to help and to open to conversations, and maybe people I wouldn't have been able to reach, you know, maybe this time last year because they were super busy. Actually now you can reach out to people and say, look, you know, I'd be really interesting to chat to you about your career, about events, you know, about anything I can learn, you know, can I have 15 minutes of your time? And I would be surprised if people say no right now, because I find people generally, you know, tend to want to help. You know, have that coffee with someone. You never know where a conversation might lead, and I've sort of, you know, learned this time and time again. It's sort of the power of momentum, really, where, you know, you sort of might be looking for a new job, and I sort of experience this quite a lot in, you know, going freelance is, you know, I work and work and work, and then suddenly, you know, I come to the end of a project, and then I have to kind of start again to, you know, find, you know, new projects and develop my my contacts, etc. And I think, you know, having coffee chats with people is always good. Just tell people that you're looking for work. Tell people that you're around. You know, not just on your LinkedIn, but also, you know, I guess I sometimes tend to think that people would just automatically assume I'm looking for work, but they don't. So you have to tell people that you're looking for work and what it is you're looking for. You know, travel as much as you can. Obviously now that's kind of restricted, but you know, plan to travel as and when you can. Get advice. I'm just quickly running through these points now because I'm conscious of time. You know, get advice, you know, see if anybody's willing to mentor you. It doesn't have to be in a sort of a kind of a very rigid, you know, structure. It can be, you know, maybe we'll have a coffee every couple of months, or, you know, we have a chat every couple of months. You know, I mentor people all the time. Something that I started off with about 3 or 4 years ago, and you know, now I do it all the time. Some of which is through structured programs, others are through, you know, students, alumni who ring me up and say, look, can we just have a chat? And I'm always happy and willing to help. Lastly is nurture you. So make sure you look after yourself. And I've talked about, you know, my daily meditation practice, but also, you know, keep your body healthy. You know, events is tough on our bodies, or can be tough on our bodies. So make sure, you know, you get that exercise in when you can, because when you're in live event mode, you know, you probably won't be able to, you know, go for a run or go to the gym or do a yoga class. It's good that you sort of find that balance, and, you know, make sure you find time for rest and play, as well as work, as and when the work comes back to us. So that's it from me, really. I guess handing back over to Cameron. And also, if there's any questions, just, I don't know if you want to ask Nara, if there's, I've not kept an eye on the chat, just because I've been busy talking. So if there's any questions that I should be answering right now, then we can do that. Otherwise, we can do that in the Q&A session at the end of this segment.
Thanks very much. Cheers, Joseph. Again, lots to take on there. If you're watching, I would grab a pen and paper, because there's plenty more to come and already a lot covered. So thanks again, Joseph. Our next speaker is Steve Squires, the founder and managing director of Connektd, a freelance community, and he recently ran the Event Freelancer Summit, and today we'll be talking about freelancing in the events industry, which is something that I think a lot of people will be interested in. So hand over now to Steve.
Hello. I'm just going to share my screen as well. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to talk to you today about freelancing in the events industry. A bit about me. I've been in the events industry for 25 years. I've been in both full-time and freelance roles, so understand kind of both sides of the industry. I've been everything from a production manager to a producer to an exec producer to head of operations in agency. I've also had senior roles in agencies, including Leah Burnett, and consulted with events agencies and management consultancies on operations and how they run their business and how they run production. I'm the founder and managing director of Connektd, which is a freelance community platform which is designed to introduce companies and freelancers and build a community. It can be quite lonely being a freelancer, and it's also quite hard to sometimes get support and community information, and also to connect with companies as well. So that's what I set up Connektd for, and we'll come on to a bit more information about that shortly. Also founder of the Event Freelance Network, which is a Facebook group, and we also have a presence on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. And as Cameron mentioned earlier, co-producer with my business partner Ajay of the Event Freelancer Summit, which took place a month ago on the 22nd of July. So moving on, why are there so many freelancers in events? Events is a very project-based business and a very project-based industry, which means revenue is unpredictable, and companies and agencies need to keep their overheads low so that they can keep going through the lean times when there's no work. They tend to use freelancers to supplement the core team. So the core team tends to focus on account management and creative, because that's the thing where clients like consistency. But when it comes to project delivery, it's much easier to bring in people just to do the job. There are also so many different types of events and so many different skills that come with many different types of events, and it's impossible for any agency or any company to keep the full kind of team of people with all of those skills. So freelancers allows you to bring in the people you need when you need them, and not to keep them as a cost for the whole time. And also the other thing is travel and time away. Events can involve a lot of time away from home and a lot of travel. If you work in a full-time role where you're working with a client, it might not be practical for you to do your job and also to be away delivering projects all the time. So sometimes companies will bring in freelancers to do the travel and to go away and deliver the projects while the account team and the creative are still in the office, kind of keeping the relationship going. The pros of freelancing. This is from a report by IPSI called What Makes a Freelancer. People go into freelancing for positive reasons. There is more flexibility. You have the freedom to choose where you work and when you work, and also potentially, and I say potentially, there is an improved work-life balance as well. I've added some others, which is you have the ability to build a portfolio career. And what I mean by that is you could join a company and stay in a company for 20 years and build your career like this. Or you could do what I did and many other people have done, is you build your career as a portfolio. So you take a job and then you move to the next job, which takes you further and slightly more senior and gives you more skills and experience. And you kind of build your career like that rather than just in a straight line. You get to do the work you choose. So if you like working on automotive events or pharmaceutical or festivals or outdoor events, you can choose that work. You get much broader experience because you work with different companies, different people, different types of projects, different countries. You work with a great variety of people. And when you're busy, the earnings are good as well. There are cons to it. When you freelance, people do have worries. The biggest worries are irregularity of income. So obviously the irregularity of work and the freedom comes with a downside, which is you don't get a salary at the end of every month. Not being prepared for retirement. There's a simple way around that: set up a personal pension. And also late payment by clients, which can be a problem. Again, I've added a couple of others, which is there's no structured career progression. You have to make your own career progression, and it's difficult to differentiate yourself. There's hundreds of producers out there. What makes you different? One of the big things that comes up, particularly in agencies and companies where you've got full-timers, is why are we employing these freelancers that earn so much more money than me? So do freelancers earn more than full-timers? Yes, but. So if we look at, I need to move one of my windows here. Hold on a second. If we look at two people, so Kate is a full-time producer. She works for a company. She earns £30,000 a year. John is a freelance producer. He earns £250 a day. So both of those numbers are before tax and expenses. So Kate, if you break down her salary, she works 48 weeks a year, 5 days a week. She earns around about £125 a day. If you look at John, he earns £250 a day. So if you're Kate, you're sitting there and going, well, why is he earning 250 and I'm earning 125? If we break that down a little bit, Kate works 240 days a year once you take holidays out of that. John works for, let's say, 70% of the year, so works for less days. Let me move this window. 168 days. So if you look at Kate and you break down her salary by the number of days she works, she earns 24,000 after tax. John earns 42,000, but after tax and expenses, he earns about 30. This is a key thing, is that as a freelancer, you have expenses. You have to have costs of running your freelance business, and you need to take those into account as well. So we've gone from being double to being 24 down to 30. So it's not quite the same. And then when you go further on to that, if you break down Kate's days, her 24,000 after tax, she earns about £100 a day. And you look at John, who, although he earns £250 a day, he doesn't work all the time. But if you look at what he earns and break it down over the same number of days, he only earns £127 a day. So the difference is suddenly it's gone from being double to being £27 more. The other thing you need to consider is obviously, as a full-timer, you get a nice office, you get nice colleagues, hopefully. You get weekly drinks, you get a summer party, you get a Christmas party, you get sick pay, you get holiday pay, and potentially you get a contributory pension. And you get the experience of working in an agency. As a freelancer, you don't get any of that. You might get more time off, you might get more flexibility, you might get wider experience, but you don't get those other benefits. So that's just kind of an example when you're considering whether to go freelance or whether to go somewhere full time, is actually the financial differences are not as big as they look like. If you're going to set up a freelance business, you can do it in a number of ways. You can be self-employed, you can have a limited company, or you can be you can work through an umbrella company. Very briefly, if you're self-employed, it's very easy to set up. The admin's really simple. It doesn't cost much, but you have no legal protection. If you set up a limited company, you have the protection of having a limited company. You also have the status. It does cost more, and there is more admin involved, and it's harder to take money from the company. There is a middle way, which is an umbrella company, which essentially means you work for another company that sells your services to clients. It has its pros and cons as well. It's an easier way to do it if you're not doing it full time. So when should you go freelance? This is my opinion, based on my experience. You need to get experience of working in at least one role before you go freelance. Don't go straight from university. I was working abroad for 9 months, came back. I've been in the industry for 20 years. It took me 3 months to find work. So, and that's with the experience I've got. So don't just go straight from university to freelance. You need to build your experience, build your network, build your contacts. Every role is different. So ideally, have done the role you're going to freelance in for at least 2 companies, 2 agencies. Make as many contacts as you can while you're working, and have 6 months minimum income behind you. As I say, it does take time to find work, and actually you don't have work all the time. here's some groups and resources that you can join up to, which can help you. I saw a question earlier about some websites where you can go to find freelance work. Connektd is a freelance platform, freelance community platform. I won't go into too much more detail now about what it is because we don't have much time, but I will come on at the end how you can get involved in Connektd. Here's a list of some social media sites and some other things that you should follow. Connektd, we're all over social media. Event Freelance Network is on social media, but not Instagram. Samantha's group, Get Ahead in Events. Citizen Event is a networking group. IPSI is the is for the self-employed. It's an association for the self-employed. There's a Facebook group called the UK Event Freelancers Forum. You should check that one out. Production Services Association, one of the industry associations, and EVCOM and ILEA, who are also two of the others. So they're places you can go to kind of learn about freelancers and connect with the industry. We organised the Event Freelancer Summit, which was a hugely successful event a month ago. If you go to the Event Freelancer Summit website, all of the videos of every single presentation, including Samantha's and Caroline's and Event First Steps, are all available on that website. Top tips. I'll go through these quite quickly because I realise we're running out of time. Join Connektd. Obviously, it's a great place to connect with the industry and also to find work and to meet other companies. Think of yourself as a business, not an individual. Set up a second bank account. It's important to think of yourself as two different people. You have your professional self and your personal self, and it's useful to keep your money separate as well. Work out what you need to earn in a year and work from there. Rather than saying, this is my day rate, I'm not moving. Just when you get opportunities, you might only work for 6 months, but you might earn enough in that 6 months that you need for the year. So that just gives you more flexibility about making decisions. Create your brand. What makes you different? What do you do? What's your skills? What's your experiences? What else happens in your life that makes you different? Network. That's just one of the most important things. The more people you know, the better you are and the more opportunities you get. Keep your LinkedIn up to date and engage with those who view your profile. So if you can see that someone's viewed it, get in touch with them and say, hi, can I help? Get experience under your belt before you go from full-time to freelance. As I say, if you go freelance, without that experience, it's going to be, firstly, it's going to be much harder to find work, but secondly, it's going to be much harder to do the work when you get it without the experience. If you're in a full-time role, try and have your first work lined up before you jump, because that gives you a soft landing. Get insured if you're going to freelance. That's really important. Get financial advice. Don't go into it without knowing what you're getting into and what you need to earn and how you're going to run your business. And also save your tax. That's really important. If you just take the cash that you earn as cash and you spend it, when you come to have to pay your tax at the end of the year, you've got no money left. And be aware of IR35. That's a complicated subject. Not going to go through it now because it's a complicated subject, but you should look into it and just be aware of it and keep on top of it because it will affect freelancers going forward. We do have a mailing list. There is this link here, which we can share with you afterwards as well. Connektd doesn't currently have a graduate kind of category, but we're in the process of developing it. If you join up to our mailing list here, we'll get in touch with you once it's done, and then you can join. That's it. That was a bit of a whistle stop. Hopefully there was a lot of information there that you can use. Do connect with me on LinkedIn and any other social networks you can find me on, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
That's very much. Another very insightful session with plenty to take away there. Highly recommend, if you've not seen them yet, then check out the Event Freelancer Summit videos all on YouTube, as Steve mentioned. Plenty there to see, including some familiar speakers that we'll hear more from later today. Now, introducing our final speaker, we have Matthew Tosh, who is a freelance pyrotechnician and presenter, who's had a varied career in events that he's going to discuss now and talk about the career journey. So I'll hand over now to Matthew.
Thank you very much, Cameron. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. You've had some great tips so far. I'm going to take a very slightly different approach and talk about how you shape your career journey, because that's something that nobody really teaches us, and you kind of have to feel your way as you go along. So hopefully you can see my screen. I've called it Carve Your Career. It really is about carving your way forwards. And you may have an idea what you want to do in the events industry at the moment. You might be feeling your way, and that's okay. You have permission to do that, because just as you are at the moment, you're learning about the industry. You'll really start to learn about yourself and more aspects of the industry once you start working in it. And you'll make mistakes. I made mistakes. I found myself in the wrong job. And only a few years ago, somebody asked me the question, and it was a question that used to absolutely terrify me. And they asked the question, what do you do exactly? What do you do for a living? And this terrifies me because I wasn't quite sure. And at the time, if I just give you a quick overview of what I was doing 2 years ago, I was a senior display supervisor in a professional fireworks company, doing that on a freelance basis. I was helping out with local radio, so I was a newsreader. I still read the news, and I was doing newspaper reviews for the local BBC station. I was presenting headline stage shows at science festivals. I was a guest lecturer at universities, and I've got another guest lecturing spot this coming weekend. That's something I still do. I run masterclasses in presentation, and I'm a health and safety consultant and health and safety manager for tours. And this was really getting me very confused, because I was thinking, well, I've got all of these random things, some to do with presenting and broadcasting, some to do with events. Am I a jack of all trades and master of none? And I actually worked with a business coach who worked with me to find out what it is that makes me tick. What is this something that is common through all of these things? And I wanted to find out, why did people keep coming back and asking me to do more work? Was it just sheer madness, or did I actually have something to offer? And I learned that it's actually about live performance and live events. I love being an integral part of that, but it doesn't matter if I'm in front of or behind the scenes. And that's what makes me tick. But it's taken about 18 years for me to learn that and try lots and lots of different things. So just as Steve was saying, your career doesn't have to be a linear progression through a particular organization. You can try different things, but the key is working out, what are you taking from each position? What does it teach you about yourself as well as the job that you're in? So if I was asked to kind of draw a picture of my career progression, it looks quite messy. Okay, on the top left hand of your screen, you can see that I started out with my A-levels. I went to university. I did physics with European studies, so I got a language out of it. And I went straight into the civil service and became a patent examiner. Fascinating stuff, cutting edge research, latest technology. But I was bored. I was working on my own. And so I went back to university to train and become a teacher. And that was probably one of the best moves I made, because it opened the doors. And it taught me that I enjoyed working with people, getting the best from people. That's what I was doing in my classrooms. But of course, now when I work on events, I'm getting the best from my events teams that I'm working with. But at the time when I was teaching, I didn't realize it. But other doors opened, and this career opened my eyes to the freelance career, because I was very big on sharing teaching ideas. And it wasn't long before colleagues said, you should run a course on that. And I was headhunted to run some courses at the National STEM Learning Centre, which is at the University of York. And I started presenting training things to my colleagues about different ways of teaching. Still not in with the events industry just yet. At the same time, I became a television presenter, doing similar sorts of things, training programs. But because I was very much a teacher that wanted to think outside the box and try to bring context into the teaching, I was a physics teacher. I wanted to do something around about health and safety. So I brought a firework company into my school to do a talk about safety. And in setting that up, the manager of the company said, you're really interested in fireworks. He says, why don't you come and train with us? And so they trained me up as a pyrotechnician in my spare time. I was still teaching in the classroom, but then I realized that there's this whole other industry that I wanted to get my teeth into. So I left teaching and took up more of the freelance work on the presenting side. But I also started work as a project coordinator, which evolved into a project manager for an education charity. They started organizing events, and I really started to learn about myself that what I wanted to do was work more in events. Now, all in the background, there was this bubbling up of the firework industry, and I was learning about health and safety. And for me, health and safety in the firework industry was totally different to teaching, because in the teaching industry, people will come along and say, you can't do that demonstration, Matthew. It's against health and safety. But within the firework industry, and indeed in the events industry, we inherit a contract to make a show happen. And so the conversation goes from what can't we do to what do we have to do in order to make it happen, in order to deliver that event? Do we have to close a road? Do we need to move an audience? If there's cost implications, let's have that conversation. And very often you find in events, it'll be down to budget constraint or resources that something can't happen, not because of health and safety per se. And so all the time I was learning about these things. But if I rewind right the way back to my very first job in the civil service, I learned from that rote office work is not for me. I actually learned from my project management job that just pure project management without any delivery, without going on site, wasn't for me. And so I made mistakes. I found myself in the wrong job. But I ask myself now, was it the wrong job? Or did it teach me something? Did it teach me something about the business world? Did it teach something about myself? Did I learn something about myself? And I'm a real enthusiast about that. And I do a lot of coaching with early careers professionals at the moment. And I remind people to think about, what do you already know about yourself? But as you go through each individual job that you do, what are you then learning about yourself? If you find yourself in the wrong job, don't panic. Don't worry. What can you take from that? Because this is an ongoing thing. When you enter events, you may have an idea that you want to go into a particular line of production. If when you're in that role, you find yourself thinking, I really cannot stand this, it could be the type of event you're working on. You have permission to be experimental. Talk to people at work in the kinds of events or the kinds of roles that you enjoy. You might decide that you want to become a freelance lighting technician because the lighting people are having all the fun. They're crawling around in gantries and rigs, where if you with your producer's hat on, it's not really ticking all your boxes. But equally, you might try something just on the whim of it because someone said, look, I've got this job. It's not what you normally do, but I know you need to get some work in. So have a go at this. And you might decide you like it. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. And very often we can fall into a trap of thinking, oh, it's all gone horribly wrong. I've spent so many years at university. I've invested time and effort in this. If you're in the wrong job, you have an opportunity to learn from that. And that's probably my most important message, because that's how I've got to where I am today with a freelance career. And I've gone through various routes, but each step, each job that I've done, I've been able to take something from it. So I've taken things from broadcast, because when you do live broadcast, you've got one opportunity to get right. When we do a firework display, we only have one opportunity to get it right. So it drills in this rigor. And it means that when I work on events, I bring that to the table. So the teams I'm working with, I will ensure and work with the team to make sure that that event succeeds first time round. And that's my key message. So I'm going to hand you back to Cameron. I'll be around for the Q&A a little bit later. But the key is, don't be afraid of failing.
Thanks very much. So going to keep Matthew on and bring on our other speakers. So we'll get Samantha, Josef and Steve back on now for a panel where I'll be asking them a few questions about the industry and their thoughts on some topics. And we'll also be taking some questions in the Q&A. So if you have any more, please fire them into the chat, whether that's for an individual speaker or for our entire panel. So welcome back, Samantha, Josef, Steve, now who are joining us with Matthew. And our first question is, what are the biggest challenges in your eyes facing the events industry today? Clearly, there's one that's going to be at the top of the mind, but beyond COVID, what other challenges are we facing today?
I would say just, looking after yourself at this time. A lot of people are really, really worried about work, about money, where they're next, where they're getting paid. So if you need to take some time out, take some time out. If you need to come off, social media and have a little break, do that. So I'd say, kind of your mental health really is really, really important. There's a lot of event professionals going through a lot of hard stuff at the moment. They're probably one of the only times they've done it. So take care of yourself.
I think if you're looking at the industry as a whole rather than the people in it, one of the things one of the challenges is getting the industry recognised as an industry in itself, because currently the industry is so segmented and diverse. There is no single body that speaks for the whole industry, which is possibly part of the reason why it's being treated the way it is, and it hasn't had the support that it needs, because there is no single body that speaks for the whole industry. There are probably 50 different associations that represent different parts of the industry, and actually we're not treated as a separate industry by the government. We're treated as part of the travel and the travel and hospitality industry, which means we don't have that voice as the events industry either. So kind of professionalizing the industry and making us more recognized as a really important industry to the economy, not just part of travel and hospitality, is a real challenge for the industry.
I completely agree with you there, Steve, particularly with the lack of single representation. Mental health is very important, because when you're working on events, actually you spend so much time, Josef alluded to this earlier, you spend so much time running from event to event. Suddenly we've got all this free time that we don't quite know what to do with, and that challenges us as well. But I think as we start to return, and this is certainly some of the conversations I'm having on the health and safety front, is that the return to what we perceive as normality is very much a marathon. This is not a sprint. And there are people at the moment, and some festivals that I'm working with, they're just desperate to get out and do an event. And you can understand why. There's this huge gap. We're all missing it. And our customers, our punters are missing it as well. But we've got to get it right. The circumstances have shifted a bit, and they may shift again in the future. We may encounter other challenges, global challenges as we go through it, whether it's to do with a pandemic or even environmental issues. The events industry is changing all the time, and probably one of our biggest hurdles is our resistance to change.
And Joseph, have you got anything to add to that in terms of?
No, I think in terms of the challenges, I think it's important just to be ready for when things are starting to happen again. Have your details, your CV ready. If you see a job advertised, that you're ready to kind of pounce and go, yes, I'm ready now. I can send you my CV, rather than spending days kind of refining this and that. Make sure that the house is in order, so the LinkedIn looks great. So when people do come across you, that they can see that you're looking for work, and that your experience is really detailed and really clear. So I think that's an important thing to be doing right now. Yeah,
and on that note, next question is, what skills and attributes do you think are the most important for those entering the events industry today? I'll go to Samantha first for that.
I would say flexibility, definitely, and being able to kind of adapt to whatever task that you're given. Now, if you're an event manager, you are probably doing lots of different things. So you're doing budgets, you're doing client liaison, you're doing venue sourcing. So you need to be flexible and able to adapt and take on all those responsibilities. And I think you need a bit of a tough skin as well at the moment. When you're getting no replies to job applications that you're going for, and you're maybe not getting replies to some of your LinkedIn contacts that you've made or emails that you've sent out. You need to be a bit tough-skinned. It's not personal at this time. It's just the way things are because of, the global pandemic. So those are the two things I'd say, definitely.
I can see you nodding, Matthew, so I'll go to you next.
Yeah, so tenacity is probably what, just following from what Sam was saying. You need to be tenacious. Don't give up, and be patient as well, because it takes a while. It takes a while to get established as well. When you're starting out, even those of us that are very experienced, it's tenacity. But the other thing for me, certainly speaking as somebody that tends to work very much in that live moment during the performance, is clear communication. Absolutely paramount. I've seen things start to go wrong when you don't have clarity of communication amongst your team. So think about how can you be very clear in what you're asking for and the conversations that you're having.
I'll go with Joseph next.
Yeah, I think it's persistence beats resistance, I think, is the old saying. So I think it's even though 5 people might have said no to you today, and you'll be like, why am I doing this? It's like, just pick yourself up, and tomorrow is another day, and and I think it's important to keep trying, and you never know who will say yes, or also quite often conversations that I thought would lead to work actually never led to anything, but then it led to another introduction and to another introduction. And I think, speaking from my own freelance experience, you never know where your next job is going to come from. And yes, we all have our channels, and we all have our contacts, and we all have our connections that we speak to. But it could be a new connection, or it could be someone you haven't spoken to in a really long time. So I think it's just good to just keep on it, go out there, stay out there, and talk to people.
Cool. And finally, Steve.
I agree with Matthew's point actually about communication. I think without communication, nothing works. And actually, when you're in a role as a producer or a project manager, you take in all the information, and you have to decide which bits of it to give to who. And actually, that is the most important thing, because actually there's this huge wealth of information that's out there, and it's all in your head, and you need to put it on paper, but you don't need to give that to everybody. And everybody needs little pieces of it, and you need to know, you need to decide who gets what bits of information in order for them to do their job properly. And communication is just so important, because without that, no one knows what they're doing. The other thing is attitude, and it's a bit of a cliche, but a can-do attitude. When you're on site, particularly, things just come at you, and you need to make decisions, and you need to think, right, maybe I can't do this the way I want to. How can I do it? You have to be a bit goal-centered. You have to have this attitude that I am going to succeed, and I'm going to do this, and I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I'm going to work it out. And one example I was thinking about, I don't know why, last week, and it probably took me back to a few years ago when I was on site. No matter what role you're in, and how senior you are, and what position you're in, if you're on site and you're building an exhibition stand, and the client's coming in 10 minutes and the floor needs cleaning, even if you're the managing director, or you're the script writer, or you're whoever, and the floor needs cleaning, you clean the floor. It's that attitude. It's not like, that's not my job, who's going to do that? The attitude is, something needs to be done. I'm here, I'm a body, I'm a pair of hands, I'm going to do it. That's the kind of attitude I think is really important.
Absolutely. Now, the final question before we go into the Q&A, and I take a few questions from the audience, is what one thing have you learned during your career that you wish you knew when you started out, or you could tell yourself at the beginning? I'll go to Matthew first.
Oh God, no! There's so much. What one thing would stand out? Allow yourself time out. Several people have spoken about mental health already, but it's so, when you're doing something that you really enjoy, you just think, I need more. I want to do more. But we're living creatures. We only have a finite amount of energy to give. And I've made those mistakes of just doing event after event after event, and then you reach burnout, and you're no good to anybody, let alone yourself. So give yourself time out, and you may need to plan for it. And one of the biggest challenges of being a freelancer, of course, is learning to say no.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's on the mental health front. Everyone's mentioned there's so many opportunities at the moment that haven't been about before, especially with people having the time to put on courses and stuff. And there are a lot of people being active on LinkedIn, posting the courses that they've done and the webinars they've been at, and clearly a thing like this that we're doing today. But yeah, definitely acknowledging that you can't do every single one of them, and don't beat yourself up for not being at everything. But good on everyone for turning up today. I'll go to Steve next.
I think mine's a confidence thing. If you go to an interview, or if you meet a company and somebody asks you to take on a role or to do a job or to work on an event or work on a project or whatever, don't go away and think, oh, why have they asked me that? I can't do that. I've not got the right experience. I've not got the right skills. The fact that they've asked you to do it means they believe in you and they believe you can do it. So you just you have to go into that mindset. If you believe you can do it, you can do it. And actually in this industry, there is the opportunity to fail. Not too often, but there is the opportunity to fail. But you need to, if you go into it with the mindset that you can do it, you can do it. And if someone's offered you a role and asked you to work on something with them, it's because they believe you can do it, and you need to go into there with that same mindset.
Great. Go to Samantha next.
I would say if you're just starting out and you have to do something quite menial, boring, quite easy, that's absolutely fine. You know, it will take time to get that amazing events job. It won't be the first thing you get from leaving school or from university. I mean, I did like data entry for a while in an events agency. That's fine. You will get a better role. More things will come your way. But if you have to start off something kind of lower skilled or whatever, just to get the foot in the industry, that's fine. And also I would say make more of your volunteering opportunities that are out there. I used to volunteer for Oxfam when I was at university. I did a Spanish degree. I didn't make the most out of that really. I did it and I thought, use that time if you're volunteering or doing an internship, then to reach out with the people that you're working with and ask them, ask people for advice. I didn't really, I only spoke to people that I was working with, no one else. But it's fine in this day and age with social media to reach out and ask people.
Yeah, and certainly the LinkedIn details. If anyone else wants to do that, then by all means do that, and I'm sure the speakers will be happy to speak to anyone offline later on. Go to Joseph for the final one.
I think, what I would say to myself if I could, look at my younger self is like, it's probably two things actually. Don't be so hard on yourself and don't take it personally. Don't be so hard on yourself, meaning that, we're all perfectionists in this industry. We all want things to be 100% right. And it's unlikely that it will go 100% right. It will go right, but, maybe only you and a handful of other people know what it was supposed to look like originally. And, the fact that there's a variation in color or in, your main act or, in any of those things, most people don't know, and they look at it and go, wow, this is amazing. And then, I sometimes would look at it, but yes, I know, but it would have been so much more amazing had we had more time, more money, more this, more that. And so I would quite often beat myself up over that. And so I would definitely say that. And also just don't take it personally. Once you kind of give birth to an idea, it's out there and it doesn't belong to you anymore. You share it with everyone. And so if people don't like your idea, they don't have to like it. It's okay. Other people will like it. So yeah, those would be my two things.
Could definitely resonate with the first one. I can see everyone else nodding as well. Now on to the Q&A. First question was for Samantha. It says, when you're talking about social media, should LinkedIn and Instagram content be closely related, or should they be differentiated?
I think they can be similar, but they need to be different, because Instagram is all about the images and all about your captions and hashtags. LinkedIn, you can write more. You don't have to worry so much about the images. LinkedIn video is a good one to use on LinkedIn. That's becoming more popular. So it can be the same topic, but just gear it towards the two different platforms. More creative on Instagram, and you can use more kind of words on LinkedIn, and try different things out and see, when's the best time to post, whether video works better for you, whether a live on Instagram works best. Just have a play and see what works best for you and your audience.
Yeah, and another one.
Could I answer? Can I start to that point? For me, I have different audiences on those platforms. So my Facebook audience tend to be people that come and see the stage shows that I do. There are not many events professionals watching that side of things. The events professionals, for me, the ones I work with and the ones I want to network with are very firmly on LinkedIn and Twitter. So I will post content that is suitable for my different audiences on each platform.
Yeah, very good point. I think our generation at the moment is probably using these platforms more than we ever have, because we're all trying to show off the things that we're doing in our spare time and showing that we're making use of it. But yeah, understanding how to use them all effectively and realizing that they are different. We have got these different platforms for different reasons is important. If we can use them all differently. Another question for you, Samantha, but I guess anyone could add on to this. Someone's saying, I struggle to find listings for job vacancies because my keywords don't seem to connect with the right adverts. Have you got any recommendations to fine tune my searching for jobs?
So with production, I think to start off with is have a look at some production companies you would like to work for, do some research on them, and then see if they are recruiting, see if they're still actually there, that they haven't, that they haven't gone under. And then maybe reach out to individuals in those production companies using LinkedIn. And then maybe you need to look at some different platforms when you're job searching. Try and look at different platforms that are out there at the moment. I'm not sure which doesn't say which one you're using. And production also, I think you need to be quite creative. They might have the roles differently. So rather than meetings and events, they might word it differently. So have a play and look at some of the industry websites that do have job listing pages on there. So ABCO, MNIP, a lot of them have job listings separate, and production companies might be on there. But also with production, I think it's a lot about who you know when you're looking for those roles.
Yeah, there are lots of different platforms out there for sharing things, and some great groups, including Samantha's own group, Get Hidden Events, and we'll share links to everyone's various platforms that they've got at the end as well.
I'd also say it's not just about job adverts; it's about relationships and networking as well, which is where Connektd comes in. There's a lot of agencies don't post jobs, particularly in production. It's all about who you know. So someone in the agency, they'll say, oh, we need a producer, we need a production manager. And they'll say, oh, I know this guy, can you get him in? So that's why networking is so important, because in a lot of cases, you don't see job adverts. But it reads as if, when it says about keywords, I guess that's maybe a LinkedIn thing. I mean, I was going to state the obvious and say change your keywords, but I guess that's not a good answer.
And for you again, Steve, question from David Jarman, who's speaking in the next session. What's the difference between freelance and going from contract to contract? He says, I worked for various festivals and events in my 20s, but never set myself up as a sole trader or had separate bank account, etc. How do you go from a contract worker to a fully fledged freelancer?
I mean, ultimately, the contract worker and a freelancer are the same thing. They're just different words. If you can, because the work you do is the same. It's how you view yourself and how you run your business. If you're a contract worker, I guess the definition of a contract worker is you finish your contract and you look for the next one. You don't think of yourself as a business with an annual goal and an annual target and an annual turnover. You don't market yourself. You don't set yourself up as a business. It's really a mindset. It's a mindset as I am a freelancer. I'm a business. And I am going to go out and I'm going to build my business, rather than I'm going to do this contract and then I'm going to do another one. I think it's about terminology and mindset more than anything else, I think.
Matthew, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I do actually, because I mean, I started freelancing whilst I was a teacher, and it resulted in me going part-time. And even when I was doing project management, I was still doing freelancing, and it didn't conflict with my day job. So I was already in my head a freelancer, but I wasn't necessarily a sole trader, because I still had a PAYE job. And I realized quite rapidly that after about 18 months of doing the two side by side, that I wanted to go 100% freelance. And I might be preempting another question a little bit later, but it's a journey. But also having confidence in yourself. If you're doing the freelance work, have the confidence and say, yeah, I am freelance.
Great. I've got a question. I'll go to Josef for this one first. What are your thoughts on doing a full-time job unrelated to events at the moment for a new events graduate? Do you think it's a setback as you'll be able to utilise your knowledge and skills in events, or should you wait for an opportunity in events to come up?
Don't wait, take the job. If someone's offering you a job, do it. And, you know, I mean, I don't know what this job that this person is suggesting is, but there's always transferable skills. So if you go through the job that you're doing, and, you know, whether that's, you know, an admin job or it's a job in, you know, hospitality, I don't know, you know, even data entry, you know, as Samantha said, you know, it's a way in, and you know, it could be that, you know, this company might have, you know, an events angle, or has anything to do with marketing, or just take the job, and, you know, then once you go through the skills that you gain by doing that job, and whatever it is you're learning, is a lot of it you can then transfer into, you know, project management, you know, into events, you know, into organizing. You know, if you work with spreadsheets, then, you know, there's a connection to doing budgets. You know, if you it's a connection with doing timelines. You know, diary management, for example, if you get a job as a PA, you know, that's just booking in meetings, you know, organizing big production meetings, that sort of thing. So there will always be some kind of connection. And I think it's better to talk about a job on your CV rather than having a gap. And I would imagine people will be more forgiving for this current time that we live in, to have a potential gap on your CV. But I think do the job, and then, you know, see what else comes in.
So there we go, get the job.
Do it.
Or Steve, from Leonardo says, you mentioned that after working abroad, it took you 3 months to get another job. How useful do you think it is, having gained that work experience abroad?
I think the work experience you gain abroad is similar to the work experience you gain anywhere. It's just different experience. One of the real benefits of working in events is that you get to travel, and you get other people to pay for you to travel around the world, which is amazing, and put you up in hotels and pay for your dinner and let you go to the pub. It's an amazing industry because it gives you that. The work experience abroad, you do the same job wherever you are in the world. So the experience you get, I've worked in Ghana, I've worked in Dubai, I've worked in South Korea. The experience I've got is the same experience I would have got doing the job wherever I did it. But the additional experience you get is cultural, and you understand how different countries work and how different markets work. And for example, working in South Korea, it's like I was going to say it's like a foreign country. It is a foreign country. But their working style and how they work and how they run their businesses and how they run their careers and everything is so far removed from how we do in this country. It's just, it builds your life experience more than your work experience, to be honest. You get the same work experience as you would get anywhere else, but it builds life experience, which ultimately then trickles down into your work, I think.
Great, thanks very much. So we've got some more questions. We're going to have to wrap up there as we move on to the next session. If you've got a question that's not been answered yet, then I'll look to try and get it answered by the next panel. But for now, I just want to say a massive thank you to Samantha, Joseph, Steve and Matthew for your time. There's been some fantastic insights there into their individual careers and some great tips I hope people have taken away. So thanks very much for your time. We'll go on to our next session.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. So now we'll be bringing on Event First Step founders Priya, Narain and Kobrak, who will be hosting a session on the transition from education into industry, and they'll be alongside guest speakers David Jarman and Caroline Jackson. So I'll bring them on now, and we'll kick off with our next session, Event First Steps.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks for having us. I think it would be a good start if we had each of the panelists introduce themselves. So, Caroline, should we start with you?
Okay, that's fine. Thanks everyone for having me, and thanks Priya for inviting me. I'm sort of part of this panel because I set up some of the first events management degrees in the UK, and as part of that helped to bring together those working across universities to create the Association for Events Management Education. I've been based in Bournemouth for a number of years, and have gone freelance, like a lot of other people. The bit of the independence wanted around that. But I sit on a couple of national bodies, Association for Event Management Education, but also a Business Visits Events Partnership. So Steve's comment about the one voice, we are trying really hard to create that one voice for the industry, and I think that's one thing the pandemic has done, has brought us closer together and helped us network like we are today. So looking forward to having a good chat with you all this afternoon.
Thanks, Caroline. David, should we move to you next?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me along and for joining this esteemed panel. Very good to see you again, Caroline. And I really enjoyed the first session as well. My background, well, I've been with Edinburgh Napier University for the best part of 13 years now. Before that, I was essentially a freelancer, but also going from contract to contract, which is why I was interested in that previous session. And I think it is very much about that mindset of what kind of a role do I think I have in the events industry. I worked for the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, where I was based already because I went to university in Edinburgh itself. And I found that through my 20s, I lived quite a compartmentalized life. I would be studying for a few months, then I'd be working for the Fringe, then I might do some traveling. And yeah, so that has led me to the position that I am today, where I am an events management lecturer at Edinburgh Napier University.
Thanks, David. Caitlin, over to you.
Thank you. So hi, yes, I'm Caitlin Kobrak. I am one of the co-founders of Event First Steps with Priya and our friend Eleanor Klaus. I'll let Priya talk about Event First Steps in a bit more detail in a sec. But my day job, I am a digital producer for a global experience marketing agency called George B. Johnson. And I work a lot on the kind of social media and marketing side for our clients, and also kind of our digital activation work. And I am an event management graduate, be it that I graduated from university in 2014. That's a little bit about me.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin. And then obviously, as it's been mentioned, I'm Priya. I'm also the co-founder of Event First Steps with Caitlin and Eleanor, who unfortunately is unable to be with us today. Event First Steps is an industry initiative helping people make that transition from whether it's an event management degree or a career change and making that transition into the events industry. And we do that for a variety of resources. So let's kick off. So before we start, as Cameron mentioned, if anyone's got any questions throughout, please put them in the chat and I'll pick them up and we'll try and cover as many off as we can throughout the session. So Caitlin, as you mentioned, you're probably our most recent event management graduate. So I'll start this question with you first, if that's all right. So what do you think the transition from undertaking an events management degree to actually coming into the industry, what does that now look like to you?
Well, okay, so this is, I'm going to touch upon the giant elephant in the room in the fact that we are currently in a global pandemic. So for anyone who is finishing off their degree or equally is in second or first year doing it, the biggest difference currently is that there are no live events. Therefore, everything that you have been learning still relevant, but equally the application of it is slightly different now. So for people who are entering the industry for the first time, working out in it, obviously there's stuff like the fact that you'll probably be working remotely from home. You'll be dealing more with the online experience as opposed to the physical live event. But I mean, that's a big shift, but I think the biggest thing for me and the biggest transition was going from an education system in which I had support and guidance constantly to having my first real role where I worked full-time every day of the week, and didn't have that same, I was going to call it like someone looking over your shoulder, but basically I was responsible for things, and if they didn't get done, they didn't get done, and it was a lot of pressure. What you learn at university is very relevant to the industry, be it that there's things that you can't learn until you're actually doing it. No one can explain to you that this industry, and I think everyone kind of mentioned it previously, we talk about mental health, but no one can gear you up to or teach you what it's actually like working in a live event for an extended period of time. I work on a big conference that's 5 days. The actual event's live from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. So you're coming on site 6:30 in the morning and you're leaving probably about 9, 10. You're also then hanging out with your colleagues, probably at the bar, and you're on site before the event starts and after the event has finished. So a 5-day event is 8 days on site. No one can teach you anything about that. So that experience when you're first in it can be slightly overwhelming. And I think Joseph said it, I think Matthew also touched upon it, but I found it very difficult to ask for help. I felt that if I asked or said, I've never done this before, can you tell me, that meant that I was incapable of doing the job. And I actually think someone mentioned it, of the top tips is if someone's giving you that opportunity, it's because they have a confidence in you. And I think that took me a long time to kind of understand.
Yeah, and having the confidence in yourself, I suppose.
Mm.
Caroline and David, as our academics in the room, do you have anything to add to that from like an academic point of view?
Caroline, I'll step in and go first if that's all right. I would say keep in touch with your university, keep in touch with your friends, gather together all the materials that have been so valuable to you while you've been studying. That might be textbooks, it might be papers that you've written, it might be your dissertation, all these sorts of things, which at the moment, as has been suggested, they're kind of framing so much of your life. We give you a timetable, we tell you to be in certain places, on certain days, whether it's in the room or online or whatever it might be. A lot of that can vanish very, very quickly. Now that might be connections with individual people. And as I've already said, it's resources, it's your favorite textbook or whatever. They're not just about getting through assessments. They're also about putting you forward as a professional, someone who feels confident about what you're doing. See what other people are doing. Keep in touch with your friends and maybe people that you've been involved with in a project, a couple of years ago. You might still be thinking to yourself, well, look, it's not going to cost me much to drop them a quick message on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. And what's the worst that can happen? They kind of ignore me. And finally, I guess, be proud of your degree. You're working towards something that you're investing massively in and everybody else is investing in because we know its value. So yeah, be proud of what you're doing, but don't let all that, don't put your academic world in a bubble. It obviously has relevance beyond that to your professional career.
I mean, you made a very good point, actually, because the people sitting next to you in lectures are potentially your future suppliers, your future contacts, and the start of your professional network, I suppose. Yeah,
it's surprising how many grads say they pick up a phone and realise it's someone from the same degree a year or two before that they're talking to. Oh my goodness, this is a small world. And despite saying it's quite complex and fragmented, it is a small world, so lots of people know other people. And I'm glad David said about don't forget what you've learnt on your degree, because I'm fed up with this. Experience is really important, but so is education. They are both important, and if people have got time to unpack what they've actually studied over the time that they've been at uni, even going back to the first year, they might think, oh my goodness, did I really do that in the first year? But everything that you've learned and how you've learned, it isn't just about practical skills, it is the cognitive and intellectual skills that you've developed, and that's what you're going to add value to the industry going forward is the knowledge that you've explored, and perhaps a different insight, a different way of looking at things, as well as the sort of creativity and innovation. So don't fall into that trap of someone saying, oh, what on earth did you do an events degree for? As David said, be proud that you've done it and actually explain everything that's actually covered, because there's a lack of knowledge, I think, out there, unless you've done an events degree, and all event degrees themselves are different. People aren't aware of what you've actually studied and what you're capable of, and that should go a long way to helping your future. So yeah, don't forget that.
You're right. There's this big debate about experience and education, and I think the people that would say experience over education, or people that have been in the events industry for a certain amount of time. So, you know, been in here for quite a long time. Whereas events degrees in general are relatively a newer thing. So I think they are, as you say, very equally important with what you're learning and bringing those skills into the workplace.
Because I was going to say, when I started, I mean, I've been at GPJ now for coming on to 6 years, and I started as a freelance role for admin, and then I've stayed. But I had a role that I got moved into the strategy and planning department, and the only reason I got that job and it was offered to me is because I had experience in research and finding stuff out, and that was because I did a dissertation. Like I couldn't have done that had I not gone to university. And so I think it is a fair point. And there's so many soft skills that you learn. Like for me, at 18, I couldn't have entered the work. Like I worked, but I couldn't have entered the events industry and applied it, because I needed that time. That 4 years for me was a huge opportunity to grow and learn, and to also see what I wanted to do. I think the thing about the transition of university is sometimes the only reason I say about, I suppose, experience and things you learn on the job is because I think if I hadn't taken volunteer positions whilst at uni, I wouldn't have realised that for me, being an event manager and an on-site role was really not suited to my skill set. I prefer being part of kind of the creative experience, and also I like to leave work at 5:30 and actually have weekends and evenings. So more office-based was perfect for me. And I only learned that because I was given that chance to, alongside studying and learning those skills, but also just dip my toe into different areas, because you get that benefit at uni, festivals.
Yeah, you're right, that transition's something that perhaps people don't realise is evidence of resilience. I had a dissertation student actually look at transition, and she looked at, because at Bournemouth the students do a year's placement, so she wanted to look at that she did look at the transition back into university. So it's similar about, you know, going into university. Majority of students going from college or school at 18, that is a huge transition, and we see it as a rite of passage. That you're leaving home, learning all those independent skills, and because now with the pandemic it's going to be a little bit different. So learning is different if it's online, but you've all been through that transition. So you've gone away, you've had to meet new people, you've gone to new places, and now with the pandemic it's learning in a different way and studying in a different way, and dealing with, you know, losing your grad job or losing your internship. So it is going to be evidence of how well you've actually coped with that. But as everyone keeps saying, but recognising that failure or having trouble to deal with that mentally is not a weakness. It is just part of that development of growing stronger, and learning the tools to cope, I suppose.
So Caroline, just on that actually, so we've acknowledged, obviously, we've addressed the elephant in the room, that there is a massive global pandemic going on, and obviously the industry is taking a bit of a hit, shall we say, in a nice way. So talking about, you know, just continuing from what you were just talking about, what do you think the new normal will look like?
Yeah, I covered this actually on Samantha's session she did on elevating your career, and I think the biggest impact on the event industry is that challenge to bringing people together for an experience, whether a conference or a party or whatever it is. It's that's been stopped in its tracks or pivoted online. So it is whether that new normal is living with COVID, and whether that still means physical distancing. So it's the physical distancing and the restrictions on travel that are really changing that. And I'm starting to see the narrative talking about, well, actually 2021, we may still have to look at live events where we have brought into play all of the research that's been going on in terms of not just the epidemiology, but also in crowd management and safety, what that might actually look like. So that's in a way why the industry is a little bit seems fragmented is because different types of events can go back in different stages. And we've been working with the government on what those guidelines actually are. But I think all students will have covered somewhere in their course about strategy and the future. So it's understanding what you think that future could be, but also we influence what that future is. All right, we're not scientists, we're not going to stop COVID-19, but it's how we deal with the external forces. So we know that we're still in an environmental sustainable issue that needs to be addressed. So for me, it's what do you think that new normal should look like, and how can we make that actually happen? So rather than panic and going back to normal, what might it be like? So what are the issues around diversity and inclusion? What are the issues around sustainability? What are the issues around well-being? For me, that's the mantra of Build Back Better events, is that we actually do so within a more socially responsible environment, which is easy enough to say when I'm sitting in this position rather than I'm looking for a job. And I think that's the difference. It's whether it's a job for money because I've got to pay to live, or whether it's a calling and a purpose to what you want to achieve. So we've seen through the pandemic a lot of people having a lot of sidekicks and lots of other initiatives that are going on. So I think we will see that. What we're seeing is an acceleration of technological changes, of the whole need for resilience and agility and ability. And I think we will see that freelancer, the gig economy, as I've called it in the chapter that we wrote on the UK report, events report, is the fact that companies will have to be a lot more agile, so they aren't going to take on as many full-time staff, so it will be subcontracting and freelancing. And so how can you get involved with that? What can you identify as a key skill? And it could be just something that is about volunteering, or just doing, say, the social media for an event like today. It's actually an added bonus that's going to be there. I think the event industry will be smaller, it will be more localized, and it will be based around quality, effectiveness and efficiency, really.
Yeah, I think the benefit for a graduate coming into the industry is that for them it's not the new normal, it's the only normal. So they won't have to like change the ways on and trying to adapt to something new, because for them this will be the way it is. And I think that already is quite a strong point and a strength that I think they can really like push on. David, did you want to add anything to that about what you think the new normal will look like?
Absolutely. I think that going back to a more local, sustainable model is going to be part of it. But if nothing else, then the fact this is a global pandemic has shown us that everybody is operating under the same sorts of pressures. So if you see someone doing something interesting in Australia and you think, well, I could follow that lead, then go for it. And that's something that we haven't really seen before. From an educational perspective, you know, we can look to Australia, where they've been having their academic experience, their academic year over the past 5 or 6 months, whereas we're just about to go into the new academic year. So, you know, that sort of thing operates at that global level. I get the feeling that the events industry is going to have to act quite slowly and tentatively because the situation is changing, but also that it's being creative and it's finding new ways to do things, and they won't all work. And, you know, sometimes things aren't going to kind of hit the ground, and others that, you know, that's the nature of entrepreneurialism, I suppose. Caroline might be able to say more about this than me, but I get the feeling that we might be moving into a world where the events industry is more conscious of its political environment. And that's partly because of funding that's coming in and through things like furlough schemes and grants and whatever else it might be. But people are having opinions on the government and government policies that previously would have just, you know, got on with their day job, just put on events, and that would have been great. But now they're having to be a bit more aware of the world around them because it's forcing its way in, of course. And So yes, I think that idea that for some people this isn't a new normal, this is just, well, we've had a very tumultuous 10 years, so let's just deal with whatever comes our way. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I find it weirdly exciting, and again, I'm in a very privileged position to still be in work, but when I was at uni, it was great, learn all about the industry, fantastic. And then I entered the world of work, and it was, here's the structure of how we work. And I had to learn to kind of fall into that. Whereas right now, entering the event space is, as we said, there aren't really any rules. There's no correct way to do a hybrid event, an online experience. There isn't, that doesn't exist, right? We are all adapting. And I do think, I personally work in more digital side, so I will say this anyway, that the skill sets that you guys have as students, as people studying, you've grown up with technology a lot longer than other people that I work with, but people who've maybe been around a lot longer. That sounds ruder than I mean it to do. But as in you, like, I think sometimes the difference now is that you're going to be highlighting the skills that to you are not skills. It might be common sense or things that you've just always done. So like when I started in kind of the social media side, it's not because I studied it. It's not because I had any training in it. It's because I was active online and there was an opportunity internally for me to take on a different role. I sometimes do work and I think, why is someone asking me to do this? Because to me the steps are so straightforward, because it's what we do, and I would say right now can be very exciting, be it that we are in a slow place. And I agree, David, about it. I think the industry is going to take a little longer, especially working in it. I work on quite big events, typically quite a few thousand, and that is not happening, and that's very unlikely to happen until even March next year, just to see if things will take place. But it's still very unlikely that large scale events will happen. But that doesn't mean that the B2B space isn't going to start doing stuff. Like it's a slow process, and I think now is the time as kind of students is to start getting if you think that something is interesting or worth giving a try, share it, get your opinion out there, join in those conversations. I think Samantha said it brilliantly about, be vocal online, just give a bit of an opinion, because we're looking for that, right? That's what you're looking for. There might not be permanent positions in loads of companies as there normally is, but that doesn't mean that there isn't opportunities for a couple months of work here and there, because actually we're looking for people to come in with different solutions that we haven't seen before.
For me, I think Steve really covered this in his presentation, where companies are going to be looking more to their bottom line and probably will look for freelancers more. And I think the pool of freelancers will become a lot bigger. So therefore the competition might increase a little. But as you say, it's all a waiting game. I will see how this all pans out. So actually, David, like moving on from that, I'd like to ask, with there being such an increase in the talent pool now, what career options out there do you think are suitable for event graduates for 2020 and beyond that?
Well, I put together some notes before today, and I might find that some of the things that I go through we have already covered, but I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. Be positive about yourself when thinking about your career options. This is a chance to do something new. Everyone's having to make the most of the situation, whether it's a community group or it's the Olympics or it's the Edinburgh festivals. We're all having to do something new. So if you've come up with something that you think works or could work, you've just as much right to try it as the next person on the block. So go out there and pursue it. Be positive about the industry. The events industry is well established in the UK. It is in Scotland, it is in Bournemouth, it is generally a well established industry, and we've seen through, I don't know, if there are 50 bodies representing the industry, that suggests there's a lot of industry to represent. Be positive about the opportunities and the things that you might be considering, because if something is out there and you think, yeah, well, I could give that a go, then why not? It's been mentioned twice already. If someone else thinks you're good enough to do it, then maybe you are. And I have got jobs on that naive basis where I kind of step into something and think, and now what do I have to do? But why not? Why not? Someone else might have a better perspective of what you and your strengths are. And to be honest, that is kind of one of the key points I want to make in response to this question. Your career opportunities, well, don't just rely on your own creativity. Ask your friends and your family. Go online. Find a questionnaire that can help you express and explore the things that have made sense to you. There are career consultants out there who will charge you large amounts of money to help you kind of find out where you need to go next. You don't need to start with them. Just think about, well, what is it that I think I want to achieve? And I think that also be aware that whether you've picked stuff up through an academic career or through working on individual projects or through whatever else it might be, you've picked up a lot of skills that are applicable beyond the world of events. You're thinking about experience design, community building, public engagement. Events are a part of that, but you know, those sorts of things happen in many, many other ways too. And you've got insights into that.
Yeah, very true. All good points. Caroline, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, as David said, it is trying to pull out and articulate what it is that makes you you, and I think what it is it's not a career in terms of what I would, as being old, would think of as a career ladder. That doesn't exist anymore. It's a portfolio, and I think that's why the freelance model is quite interesting, because you aren't necessarily off on a career where you want to get promotion up a ladder. It's building your identity and then building your team around you, and it's surprising how you can, if you create that portfolio and communicate that in a more digital way, you're going to make a difference and stand out. I've noticed that, you know, one of the advantages of everything moving online is accessibility. It is global, but also I've seen quite a number of students who have been engaged with webinars either through the chat, who then follow up, and they've stood out to me. So if I was employing people, I would actually remember those names. So it is those who, and I think in the past someone said to me about if students saying, well, it's those that get off their backside and do something extra rather than just doing what actually you need to do to get a degree, that are actually going to make a difference. And looking back through LinkedIn at some of the grads and what they've actually achieved, you think, well, yeah, they've actually achieved, you know, what they want. It doesn't mean to say, well, I've got a big multi-million-pound company. For some of them it is, and a number that have got portfolios of companies, but others it's making a difference and actually having satisfaction through the roles that they've actually had, some of those voluntary and some of those paid. So I think the old-fashioned career has sort of disappeared. So it's about portfolio, and if you've read your HRM textbooks in events, they talk about butterfly, that you sort of flip from one experience to the other, and you actually create your own sort of human cultural capital through doing that. And it's recognizing that that's really valuable to other people as well as yourself. That's important. So yeah, as Caitlin said, take those small projects or opportunities and actually say that those are really valuable, and valuable to others as well as to yourself. If that makes sense, rather than you know, there are recruiters who recruit and will advertise jobs, but as the other speakers said, that is not the norm in events. And it might be in terms of hospitality. We always used to say with the sort of milk round, going around to universities for careers fairs, it was really hard to get event companies to do that, because that's not how they work. They want they're not going to come to you. You've got to go to them, and you've actually got to in a way sell yourself to them. And I've had managing directors of big companies, a bit like GBJ, who have said, well, but why haven't students knocked on my door? Or have done their homework and actually realised who we are as a company and what we actually do. So that's something that you need to do. And I know Events First Steps, that's why you created really is sort of, it's quite a minefield. Even if you've done an events degree, it's still a minefield as to what are the opportunities and how do I make the most of those going forward. So that's what you said, didn't you, Caitlin? Priya, is that, you know, you think, oh, there's a huge, great world out there. What this events world? What are those opportunities? What are those roles? And how do I get a foot in the door? And I think those are still the questions that students or graduates are actually asking.
Yeah, I mean, job roles have such variant of names. I mean, I'm a digital producer, but the more honest name would be a social media manager. And like they do, you know, it's very hard to. Not that it's hard to find it. Well, yeah, it is hard to find the jobs, and I think it's even harder when companies represent them under different names, which is why I think everyone talked upon the point earlier, and it is one that I would equally say is reach out to people. Like dropping someone a message on LinkedIn, especially now when actually a lot more people have a bit more free time than they maybe have ever really been given, especially kind of during the summer period where it is typically quite busy, but reach out and just ask questions, because I know from my side, I say everything I've ever spoken at, and I rarely get people who actually come and ask the questions. But you know, for me, I was a graduate not that long ago. I've been through this experience, and the way that I got my job was from networking. And it's an unfortunate truth. Like ideally you'd be able to go online and find the stuff. Unfortunately, as you say, Caroline, that the industry doesn't work quite like that. It's also because I think there are some roles where it's very quick turnaround. So it's getting people they know that are able to do it already. It's why the freelance community in the events industry is so important, and it's so brilliant. I mean, I do some of the events that I work on. I work with the exact same people every year on a freelance ability, and it's one of the best things. These are, you know, it's such a weird space, the events industry, and the fact that you can go a whole year not seeing people, and then you do each time. But reaching out to people like personally and asking them, what jobs do you have? Actually, I'm really interested in your company, but I don't understand. Like just ask, and people will be willing to share.
Yeah. Reaching out for a mentor. I know that was mentioned earlier as well, like having a mentor. I mean, Caroline knows this very well, seeing as Caroline, it was and is my mentor. But at this time, reaching out to a mentor just to, you know, sometimes just figuring out what your goals are can be quite a new thing, and quite, you know, something you've never actually thought about, and, you know, actually talking through it with someone else can actually highlight that to you. And I think right now, in terms of career options, and I'm sorry to be repetitive because I know it was mentioned in the earlier sessions, but do what you can do right now. Get a job in whatever field, because it gives you the opportunity to diversify your skill set. And the events industry is built with people with very good, clear, transferable skills. So if you can develop and really hone in on particular skills somewhere else and then bring them back right now, I think that's absolutely fine. And no recruiter down the line is going to be like, oh, well, you worked for such and such company, like why did you do that? But because there was a pandemic. That won't be an issue moving forward. But I think at the moment, graduates need to kind of do what they need to do, really. We are coming to an end, so I just want to literally, the last point, and if you can just give me some like keywords and stuff, but what are employers looking for today? Now, anyone just shoot out. Go on, David, off you go.
Well, let's flip the question and say, what do you have to offer? You've got critical thinking skills, you work under pressure, you're self-motivated, you've got a track record in working in groups and teams. Being a student is not easy. So what employers are looking for is what you can tell them you have to offer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's because some employers or potential employers don't actually necessarily know what they want or what the opportunities are. And so perhaps now with that pandemic and building back is to sell them what that might look like going forward. I mean, there is an events industry board that talks to government, and they set up a talent task force last year. I have to write to where we are now, 2019. There was a report went back. There was some research done actually at the end of 2018 in terms of what are the skills, what gaps within the events industry. But they weren't that different from what you would expect. So as sales, it was about negotiating, it was about project management. So the things that most students have actually done. So it is finding what are those unique things that actually make you stand out from everybody else that will make it, I think. So it is that resilience, it is that ability to be creative and innovative. And that, as people said earlier, the attitude part of it is the can-do, rather than the expect. What I don't like about LinkedIn sometimes is when people say, I know it's different now because we can actually say that we are open for work, but it's sometimes the attitude of people saying is you owe me a job, rather than actually know I can give you particular skills and expertise that will build your business, and that way around, rather than what's the job and how much you're paying me.
Yeah.
So I think that will change going forward as well.
Definitely.
And I was just going to say, I think really importantly, it's not enough to just say that you have this skill set. You have to now show it. So if you say that you're creative, show that you're creative. And I think, to Samantha's point, to quite a few of the stuff said earlier, that's where being active on social, you can start to do that. But it's, to just say that I can work on multiple projects, show that, give people the quantify it, because it is unfortunately, it's competitive at the best of times, and right now it's going to be a little bit more difficult, so try and stand out.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys. That's the end of the set questions we had for the panel. I'm just going to have a quick look through the Q&A and see if there's anything that the audience wants to know. And obviously, if there is something you want to ask, pop it in the chat now. We've had a couple of questions all around the same thing, actually, from Yolanda and Anonymous, and it's relating to experience and how to get it. Basically, I personally have seen job roles for a graduate position asking for 5 years experience, and you kind of think, well, how does that work? So I don't know if either of you or anyone on the panel has any top tips or any suggestions on how someone can get experience within the industry.
I would say now is to reach, well, okay, it's firstly to reach out to people in the industry who are doing things maybe on the side. So me and Priya obviously do event first steps. I think you can, not that we have an opportunity right now, but as in we're still organising online events, we're doing things, and there are so many other people, as Samantha says with her Get Ahead of an Event stuff, as Steve's doing with the freelance side. Reach out to people and see if you can support or help volunteer for a little bit in those areas, because again, that can give you, that's work experience, that's actual concrete, I've been doing things. If you're able to, I think that's where I'd go, because from my side, and I suppose looking at it from an agency perspective, it's very unlikely that we will be hiring in the same way that we have been until next year, because there just unfortunately isn't enough client events for that. But that doesn't mean that there's not stuff actively happening in this industry that you can support them.
Yeah, and taking the initiative like Cameron and Brodie have done, organising this afternoon session. So, I mean, as Steve and Ajay have written about putting on their Connektd conference, they've learned a lot through that, and so Cameron and Brodie doing this. So it is, as you said, getting out there and doing that. So that 5 years experience isn't 5 years doing that job that they're asking for, which shouldn't be. It's you've actually got a lot of experience, and even going back into school and college, and your own leisure time and activities. So many people come to an events degree because they've organised the prom, or they're an athlete, or all of the things. That's all experience, and because your degree is experience, so all of the activities that you've done, a lot of the live projects that you do, are really something to put on your CV, that you mustn't forget those. So don't be put off by that 5 years experience, because you've got it.
Yeah, I think everything that you do at university, any project you work on, like make a note of it, keep a notebook of all of that kind of work that you have done, all the group work you've done, because that's the start of your portfolio. This is all stuff that will be of great value to you. I've got a really good question actually from Alex. Any particular advice for someone wishing to embark on an events career with a degree in an unrelated field? But with a degree in an unrelated field. Hi Alex, I'm Priya. I am you. So this is so my journey into the events was a transition. I did a business related degree many years ago, worked in travel for so long, and then did a sidestep into the events world. And I basically did it in the same way that we've talked about now, like reaching out to people, asking for volunteering opportunities. A lot of the things that you do in your degree are very transferable as well. So your communication, working with people, obviously I'm not sure what degree you are, that you have done, but anything like that is all transferable. Organizational skills, getting your project work in on time, meeting those kind of deadlines. They're all things that are actually desired skill sets within the events industry. So I'm proof that you don't need to have an events management degree to be in the events world.
And also,
I did history and English.
History.
But also Matthew earlier, when he talked about the fact he studied science, and I would say that actually one of the best things is working with people in the industry who have specialized in those areas. Like I work on a lot of tech events, so I work with a lot of people who studied like IT and were developers, and they're brilliantly suited to that event. So it's like, that's a positive. Not saying that having an events degree is equally not positive, because obviously I have one, so yes, but it's a good thing to come in with different experience, because your background, that's what makes the events industry so brilliant.
Yeah, but I would also suggest, though, think about doing a master's in events management, because I think that would help join some of the dots. So if, like me, did a history and English degree, I think that's great, because events are an important part of history and an important part of literature. But in terms of understanding the industry and learning some of those management skills, whether it's finance or communication, marketing, whatever, a master's degree, which is a year or 2 years, would actually be that sort of way into the industry. So like at Bournemouth, they do placement as part of their masters as well, which actually gives you that industry experience that they're looking for. So I think that is an option. I'm not selling Bournemouth anymore. I mean,
as well. I actually did the diploma with Event Academy. So
yeah,
it was a 3-month course without the commitment of going back to university, which, as you quite rightly said, still gave me that insight into the industry, which I felt, was really beneficial.
Yeah, that's what Josef put the link up earlier about the Event Academy. And Edinburgh as well, of course.
I think that's it, guys. There's no more questions from the audience, so I just want to say thank you to all of you, David, Caroline, Caitlin, and bring Cameron back on.
Thanks very much, everyone, and cheers, Priya, for hosting. Again, loads of insightful stuff there. If you look in the chat now, you should have a link to our post attendee page, which has got links to everyone's pages and everything else that's going on that's been mentioned. Lots going on. do feel free to go and find our speakers on LinkedIn. I'm sure everyone will be happy to have a chat. I just want to say a massive thanks to everyone who's tuned in, both on Zoom and on Facebook. If you are watching live, thanks for giving your questions. This will now be available as a recording shortly afterwards, straight away on Facebook, and as soon as we can on YouTube as well. So thanks to everyone who's participated. Thanks to all our speakers, given their time. Obviously very busy people. And thank you to Brodie and Ailey, again, next door, helping out on our third webinar of the past couple of weeks. It's been great to connect all those speakers and all the attendees who've been sending messages as well. Thanks very much. All the best to those who are graduating, to those want to start a career in events. If you head over to our website, ednapevents.com, you'll find links to all the stuff that's been mentioned today, and keep an eye on our social media for further events and opportunities. Thank you very much, and I'll leave it there. Cheers.